Okay, last video we spoke about an amazing concept. Now this course is not only about how to deal with your emotions, how you should be positive, how you're going to get over stress. We're going to deal with all that stuff. But also, one of the most important things in life, if not the reason we're here, is to have good relationships. And that's something that I'm going to help you do. Now, even though my course goes into a fundamental concept of basically how to overcome fear, overcome resentment, and love, but I want to teach you one subconscious premise, which is super critical. And if you understand this, you have the secret of creating real love. And this is mainly from men to women. Women can do it to men too, but mainly it's from men to women. And that is, listen very, very, very carefully to what I'm telling you now. A little bit of love, a flower, I love you, a chocolate, a hug, intimacy, I'm thinking about you, is there anything I can do for you, doing the dishes, a little bit of love, not a lot, a little bit of love, banishes a lot of resentment over feeling unloved. Do you know what we all want? It's very interesting. What is it that we all want? We all want love. That is the only thing we want. If a person has love, they can forgive everything. They don't care about anything. And if they don't have love, nothing is enough for them. Psychologists tell us that we need love more than we need food. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to offer you two offers. One is the world will love you and you'll only have bread and water for the rest of your life. The other is you'll have no love and you'll have any food you can ever imagine. Which would you take? So you see, love is the thing that feeds us. Now this is very important. The women will agree with me, the men won't understand, and that's why I'm sharing it. Now, fundamentally speaking, men and women differ. How do we differ? We differ in our minds. Our minds are different. Men have, I don't remember the exact thing, John Gray, who's a major researcher, I read a book of his research on the differences between men and women. Men have, I'm just going to give a number, it may not be accurate, 10 times as much as gray matter as women. Men are better at chokhmah, which is invention, basically almost like creativity. I say if you had a dime for every good idea a man had, you'd be a zillionaire by now. Most inventors, in fact, are men. Women are better at language, we know this, and they are more grounded in reality. And they have about 10 times as much white matter. And generally speaking, this is the difference between the right brain and the left brain. The right brain is more the gray, the left brain is more the white. Now, the white matter is super, super important for a single function, and that is called reality. You see, there's a real benefit in being able to be creative, thinking out of the box. And that's why I think most creativity, certainly bravery, think about new companies and stuff like that, comes from men. However, there's something probably even as critical as being grounded. Because if a mother didn't always think about what's going to be for supper, then, as John Gray say, women have basically a to-do list in their head. And they can't understand how come a man could sit and watch TV. Don't you know there are things to do? But men, actually, our brains, we have two brains, the right and left, they're basically two separate brains. They're not really that connected. So I can go into fantasy and forget about reality. Women cannot do that. Women are always connected to reality. And if you're a woman, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a man, listen carefully. Their concept of what has to happen is always real to them. They can't go to sleep until the house is clean, till they do these things. Why? Because they're connected in reality. And not only are they connected between the right and the left, they're also connected to the prefrontal. The prefrontal is kind of what we call executive functioning, which is I got to do this now. This is real. I have to do it now. And one of the ways you see this is men are more risk takers when it comes to investments. Women are more conservative. Why is this important? Because, and this is a very, very, very deep concept. Let Let me ask you a question. Before I asked you if you could have all the food in the world or all the love in the world, you would take love. Let me ask you another question. What if I would say to you this? The whole world will love you, but you won't love yourself. You'll see yourself as unlovable. Like somebody that everyone says you're skinny and they say, no, I'm fat. Or the whole world will despise you, but you'll say, no, I know that I'm lovable. I know that I'm awesome. Which would you take? So you see, the real person, the real love that we want is we want self-love. We want to love ourselves. We want self-esteem. Now, listen carefully because this is very, very deep. When we don't have anxiety, thank God I've overcome anxiety with many of the tips that I will share. But when we don't have anxiety, we can love ourselves. Do you know what depression is? Depression is our own ego angry at ourselves that we are not happy, or more correctly, that we are suffering, we are in pain. So basically the ego blames you for its suffering. And that's why, unfortunately, what happens in depression, the person begins to think of suicidal thoughts. Who is thinking that suicidal thought? You don't want to kill yourself. But the ego says, I don't like you. I hate you. You're making me feel this way. So you see, this is a very powerful force. So when I'm happy, the ego's like, Zevi, you're awesome. You're great. You rock. Thank you so much. But when I'm anxious and in pain, and 80% of anxiety, or I should say 80% of depression is caused by anxiety. Because I've had anxiety and I don't wish it on my worst enemy. Anxiety is a constant suffering. So now the ego is upset at you. It's bad enough that you have the anxiety. Now you also have the ego on your case. And that causes the depression. So you see, my dear friends, that women have, and again, this is statistics, twice the rate of anxiety as men. What does anxiety cause? It doesn't only cause a certain panic, it also causes a loss of self-esteem. What does that mean? That I don't love myself, or my ego is not so happy with me. So now you have to understand the most critical thing in the world, the deepest, deepest secret. And that is that all of our egos have jealousy. And so if I see you and you are happy and I am miserable, do you know what my ego says? I'll tell you a real story. It's funny. I lived in a country where some of the population was very anxious. They came from parents that were very harsh. That's why, unfortunately, the Germans, which have very, very rigid rules, that comes out in very negative ways. But this society also had the same problem. A guy actually told me, now remember, I'm a rabbi, so in a way in the society I'm a little respected. So he came over to me. He said to me, you know, you were walking into synagogue, and he's a religious man as well. He goes to synagogue. You're walking into synagogue, and you were just too happy. So I felt so bad because I can see, first of all, his face is white. Do you know when a person's face is white, it's because the blood is not flowing there. And so I had that actually when I had, unfortunately, anxiety. Your blood is mainly focused in your heart and your muscles. So sometimes if you see that, if you see somebody whose face is white, be very sensitive to them because they're really suffering. And so anyway, the point is, I mean, it's laughable, but think about the psychology that happened here. And I'm going to say it because anybody that's been married experiences this. And it's just such a powerful example that I'm going to use it. And that is, why is it that the same woman that may truly give her life for her husband one day, it may truly be ready to kill him once a month? Because when we're suffering and we see somebody else that's not, you know what our ego says? And it's subconscious. It's amazing. 80% of divorce, listen to this. This comes from John Gottman, the greatest researcher on divorce. He's so good that just by looking at a couple speaking to each other, within 5 minutes, he has a 95, something like 0.7% accuracy if they're going to get divorced. That's how good his research is. 80% of divorce, which 80% of divorce is actually initiated by women, comes because the woman is not happy. And this is his words exactly. And she begins to see faults in her husband. In other words, our mind plays a trick on us. Our mind really shows us what our heart is telling it to see. If I'm an architect, I see architecture everywhere. If I'm a painter, I see, I don't know, beauty or beautiful paintings. If I'm a rabbi, I see opportunity to bring people closer to God. You don't even see that. I do. Because our mind is seeing what our heart wants it to see. When my heart is jealous, you know what I see? I see the evil in you. And this is also anti-Semitism. Why anti-Semitism doesn't really work on Jews that have good self-esteem, because they know it's the problem of the other person. That's why there's bullying. Again, bullying can only work if you have your own insecurities. But if you're secure in yourself, it's a joke. You know, unfortunately, sometimes, thank God the Arabs are coming closer to the Jews, but there were certain rallies that they came to the Jewish community, this and that, and I always did this. I would always be super nice to them. I would kill them with love because they wouldn't know how to react to it. So the point is that when a person is feeling jealous, and I'll share another story just to give you the power of what I'm telling you. I was once in South Africa and I had a booth, and it was like in a marketplace, and I was doing it as a religious Jew. We're teaching people about Jewish things, but we had many people coming over, some Muslims, very nice. But one guy came over. I saw from his questions very quickly he wasn't looking for a conversation. He was looking basically for an argument. So I wanted to end the argument. There's no point in arguing with someone looking for an argument. So I said to him as follows. I said, tell me, do you love me or do you hate me? So he couldn't say he hates me. So he says, oh, you know the Palestinians? So I said, I just want you to know that I love you. So this guy that had all that story in his head, and he comes to the Jew and he's ready to... He puts his head down and he walks away. Why? Because I got to the fundamental core of his issue. His issue was not all the things he was talking about. He didn't care about that. It was a jealousy. And when I said to him, I love you, it all just went away like that. And the same thing is if you want a relationship, and this is super critical. Men, myself included, we're very good at wooing women. And the truth is we're good at doing this in relationships and business as well. You know, you're coming into the business or you're getting hired, or there's a honeymoon phase where we're all on our best behavior. But once we get comfortable, we forget the principle of life, which is those that are miserable will make you miserable. And if you wish for somebody to make you happy and not make you miserable, you must care about their happiness. It's that simple.